Buenas tardes a todos.
Welcome back, good afternoon. I'm sorry it's after lunch that I have this challenging situation. In Spain it's about siesta time, but we're going to start with the business development within Neinver. For the last time I've been at the facility management sector. Now I am working in real estate in general. Before I was facility manager. Two worlds that look separately, they look differently, but in reality they get together. Those two worlds, according to my experience along the last years, they will converge. Whenever we talk about assessing a real estate asset, there are two different possibilities or three great areas summarizing external variables here that might imply an impact on the assessment of an asset. On the first hand, we have profits due to the income due to whatever fixed assets. We have what people pay for rent, what people pay for services, for managing the services. On the other hand, we have what is paid and the CAPEX, the investment to improve and keep the quality of the asset. And we have a yield. The yield is a ratio. The yield is something fluctuating according to the state of the real estate market, wherever it's going to be assessed. And on the other hand, we have the quality of the asset. So we have to have then the income minus the expenses divided by the yield, and we have the assessment, the accurate assessment of the asset. And then, if we go down into more details, this formula can be specified. So we have here the fixed income minus the variable plus the income minus expenses divided by the yield. And this year and the last year have been very good years regarding investments in real estate. We have to consider what we have to pay for the common services. We have the OPEX, operative, and in this case expenses. So we have that when we pay more than the income, we have a shortfall that will have a negative impact on the asset. And the yield is the same. What was requested from the facility manager till now? Just to be invisible, just to manage the facilities and to stick to the budget. And how about the importance of that? The value is zero, because we want the yield we get and what we get for the common services minus the expenses. I would like to have a zero value, but the facility manager, if the facility manager will just get an income and will pay with the budget and the expenses will be up to that amount, no problem. The problem is when you have a shortfall, when you have a negative impact on the assessment of the asset. This is the turning point. This is a moment I'd like to analyze. There could be result zero, no impact, or a negative impact. And this is what I'm going to explain now. We're going to give it a thought. And in the we have the definitive or final assessment, which is the assessment minus the CAPEX. This is a big slide and a huge screen. What you have on the screen is that facility management will play a role, will have an impact on all of the variables that concern the assessment of a real estate asset. That is the debate I always have within the real estate professional sector, and due to my own experience. First of all, let's talk about the situation when the core business is real estate. That's a company. Within the real estate sector, we have three interest groups, three stakeholders. Investors, they want profitability. the tenant would like to have the support for the core business, and the final user looking for experiences. If we consider, for instance, a shopping mall, you have the client that goes to a shop, and then there is a tenant that pays for that shop, and it covers the amount invested by the investor. In general, it was like a bottom-up approach. So a person decided to invest, then there were tenants, and then they work with clients. And the situation is that if you start defining, if you start promoting the importance of an asset, or if you're going to evaluate the asset according to the final user, the client, and then the tenant, and then you analyze the investor's viewpoints, the profitability curve goes up instead of working, giving the priority to the investor and having a top-down approach. When we have a bottom-up approach, profitability does augment. And let's elaborate on that. Let's say when we have 7 variables here that are to a certain extent concerning the assessment of a real estate asset. We have the amount paid by the tenant, so the rent paid. We have then the variable value due in commercial activity, depends on the activities, the occupancy. If you have several, for instance, floors, or if it is a shopping mall where we have lots of space, then the occupational level is occupancy is very important. You have how many sites are occupied, and then we have here the common services and what you get for the common services, and then you have the expenses, the yield, and the capex, which is the investment necessary to keep the quality of the asset long time. So how about the facility management capacity for modifying? If we if we analyze that we reduce the cost of the real estate asset, then we can reduce rent to get a return on the investment. So the facility manager is key for designing each real estate asset, because this will optimize the design, and adjusting rents might enhance occupancy. You will have many tenants interested, because if I have 2 buildings, 2 malls, 2 shopping malls, in which we have 2 different levels of rent, tenants will go to the cheapest option, so we'll have higher profitability there. So from the very beginning, we have the key role played by the facility manager, because it plays a key role regarding the number of tenants, the people interested in paying a rent for that. Regarding the variable part of it, if you have, for instance, a shopping mall, there is the variable rent that is linked to the sales, the level of sales. If the service is not correct and there are problems, they will sell less. So this variable part of the rent goes down, and then that concerns the assessment of the real estate asset. If the facility manager is able to guarantee the required services for developing the activities, then variable part of the rent won't be decreased, and this is linked, in the case of shops, this is linked to the number of sales, so you have to consider also common services. The tenant will pay, and it is a part. If they pay less for the common services, you will have higher level of occupancy. If I can optimize the amount to be paid and what's to be shared by tenants is less, if I have 2 different buildings, A and B, well, they pay the same amount, same rent, but the ratio for common services is lower, let's say at A compared to B. People will choose those where the common services are less expensive. Occupancy is then modified, and the assessment of the real estate asset will be different. What happens with the income? If there is a person who's supposed to get a service and the person is paying for a service that the person is not getting, then the person will stop paying for that. This will increase morosity and shortfall. There will be a problem that there will be less money and a problem that you pay more than you get. The yield, there are two components, as I said. One is the market evolution part, and the other one is the quality of the asset. So firstly, as I said, it's a market, how attractive this is. But the other part, as I said, is the quality of an asset. The ratio will divide, as we said, it is very important. You divide by this, and so it's very important. It plays a huge role in the assessment of the real estate asset. That will have an impact on the quality of this asset, and so there is a non-direct impact on the yield. So maintenance, having refurbished properly, and when you analyze the environmental impact, if results are good, positive, there is a higher quality, and there will be an impact on the yield that will play a role very important in the assessment of the yield of the asset, the real estate asset, So, CAPEX will reduce profitability of a given asset. If I have to estimate investments in order to have it updated, then this money, as you know, decreases profitability. You get whatever, but you reduce the income from the asset, so that means profitability is lower. But whenever we purchase a real estate asset and you have a cost estimation, you perform cost estimation along 10 years. Let's suppose at year 3 you estimate 300,000 euros. The impact of asking for 600,000 instead of 300,000 means you will require money that was not supposed to be estimated. While analyzing this asset, there is a double impact because there is an excess of investments, an excess that was not foreseen. So profitability goes down. Real estate sector has evolved. So now it is not only selling a house, selling a building, but creating experiences. And you have this in the field of hospitals, hotels, shopping malls, or even office buildings. It is the experience for the user. And based on the experience, that means a differentiation that plays a role, has an impact on the profitability of a real estate asset. The experiences are made up of, let's say, the quality of the real estate asset, but other things where we have now experienced directors, experienced managers, triggering experiences, how to use in a better way. There is the experience of buying something, the experience of visiting a hotel. Within a hotel, you have a urban experience that is different from what you have when you go by the sea. So there is a need of triggering experiences, and that goes through the facility manager who's controlling the design and the way to have an exploitation of the asset. Better experiences mean you have more money, make more money, it is profitable. So we have more profitable real estate assets. And let's talk about the initial formula with the assessment here, where you have what's fixed, what's variable, the income due to the common areas minus the expenses you have to pay to. Let's suppose you reduce what you have to pay, and let's say it's €1 less per square meter. And then we're talking about a shopping mall, and you reduce then let's suppose the amount. Let's suppose you paid 10. 10 is the fixed part, and then you pay 10 for the services. Let's suppose now you pay 9 for the common services and 11 you pay for the rent. The amount is the same, but minus €1 per square meter per month, thanks to the optimization offered by the facility manager. Same rate of efforts, but the impact, if you have 40,000 meters, that means if you have 40,000 square meters, a yield of 7%, you have an increase of the asset that is 6.8 million euros. So you are triggering money. You are having an increase of the assessment that is almost 7 million euros. It is not that the facility manager is just having exclusively to play by the rules and stick to the budget, and that's it. And if there is a front page, if there are news, it is because there is a problem. But no, there is a possibility of making money, 7 million euros as an increase, means increasing profitability, increasing, and instead of talking about preventive actions or corrective maintenance, and we are going to say how much I will give back to the company, changing the way the asset is positioned. And so the facility management plays a role, has an impact on all the variables that are concerned to the assessment of whatever type of real estate asset. Until now, the role's been a passive role, and the only responsibility, the only duty has been to fulfill, to play by the rules. That's it, stick to the budget. We were just within the budget, and that was it. We could optimize some things whatsoever, but we were news only. If there were problems, we were expending much more money than the amount we were supposed to. In the case of value added, we see the role is more important. The role of the facility manager. The facility manager is increasing, enhancing the value, identifying, first of all, the location, the place to build, and then identifying the investments long 10 years to improve the value of the asset. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your kind attention. That's all.